What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of M&M Mondays podcast, newsletter, the audio, video, email experience coming to you on multiple platforms. And I want to start off today's entry with a quote from James Clear's 321 newsletter. I'm a happy subscriber to this email newsletter that he sends out every single Thursday. It's got these these bite-sized nuggets of wisdom that I really love. And so this one that I'm about to read for you is it's actually the background on my computer wallpaper. So I see this quote a lot, and it applies perfectly to what today's episode is about. So here's the quote. Speed is perpetually undervalued. Asking that person out today means you get to live more of your life with them and less of your life waiting. Starting your business today means you begin learning immediately and have more time to figure out what works. Go fast. The future is never guaranteed, and the right time may never come. You know, I really love the whole concept of that quote, really, but the first and the last lines of that quote, speed is perpetually undervalued. Go fast. The future is never guaranteed, and the right time may never come. We kind of have to create our own luck in a sense. And what I want to talk about today is this idea of pace, picking up the pace, moving at a quicker speed, really, and not only increasing our speed, but our output as well. You know, it's so true as you sit here and think about it, but it's so poorly executed by many, myself included, which just means that there's a massive opportunity awaiting for us. And this is how we can get ahead against, the person in the mirror. We're constantly trying to improve upon ourselves, but also the competition in your niche or your industry. We can all use this reminder. And I think there's 3 incredible ways that we can take action on this principle. If speed and output are so monumental to our success, then why is it that we as humans tend to struggle in this department? And I think there's a handful of reasons. As I was just kind of thinking through this and writing the email version of this, here's some of the reasons why I think us as people struggle in this department. 1, we don't want to fail at the thing that we're building, so we stall on it. Or maybe it's just that we don't want to lose money on a certain investment or spending it on something. And so we kind of play more defensive than maybe we should. Or maybe we just don't want to take the hit to our ego if something less than spectacular plays out. We don't want to embarrass ourselves, essentially. We don't want to look stupid in front of people. Or maybe we are just deterred by the thought of actually succeeding and then having to manage the new stresses that result from that. And in all of those examples, these are all protection mechanisms where really we're avoiding risky moves at all costs. But life itself is a risk, not to mention carving your own path as a solopreneur, which we're all out here doing. We can offset this risk by simply moving quicker, though. And I highlighted in the email version this guy that I found online. His first name is Peep. His last name is spelled Laja. And there's this tweet thread that I saw, and so I put a couple screenshots, and so I think he sums this concept up really well. And this is what his tweet says. All business activity really comes down to 2 simple things: making decisions and executing on decisions. So to make your company faster, you need to optimize 2 things. 1, how to make decisions faster, and 2, how to start shipping sooner. And there's a lot of things that slow down our companies, slow down your company, slow down my company. And the 2 examples that I highlighted that Peep brought to us was, one of the first ones is you just take too long to decide. He says most of the time is wasted on waiting for approval, waiting for input and feedback. You overplan. You wait until you have the perfect data and plan, even though we know that no plan survives the first contact with the customer, is what he says. And that's so true. And then the other reason that he brings up as to what really slows us down a lot of times is this whole idea of let's do some research first. It's kind of on that same concept of overplanning. This often means you're just delaying progress for weeks and months because you needing to look into it more. He says, sure, research is necessary, but it should not come at the expense of speed. Just like research, shipping is learning too. And I love that line. Just like research, shipping is learning too. And what he means by shipping, when you hear ship your work, what we're talking about is releasing something into the wild, hitting post on a piece of content, sending out a beta version or a trial version of a new product that you're launching. And he says, more importantly, you can do both at the same time. You can research and ship your work, so you can learn from two different angles at the same time. So I appreciate Peep and the content that he's putting out there. Make sure you're on the email version of this if you want to be able to see these in front of you on your computer, and obviously they become clickable links out there as well. Here's the thing. Mistakes and failures are inevitable in the game of business and in carving out a meaningful life. The faster we move, the quicker we can make decisions. And this accelerates our growth potential on the personal side and the professional side. So in today's entry, I'm sharing 3 fantastic ideas you can mess with to help increase your speed and output in your business. The 3 ideas here, which we're going to expand on here in a moment, is number 1, get scrappy. Number 2, get better at doing less. And number 3, let go of small decisions. And I love this quote, show me your actions and I'll show you what you value. It makes me think this whole concept, as I was like kind of piecing it all together and collecting my thoughts and starting to write this all out, I started thinking about that old children's story, the tortoise and the hare, where they race each other. And basically, it's the way I put it is it's a pretty shitty story. And here's why. The moral of the story is move slow and calculated, don't give up, and you'll eventually win. And so if you're not familiar with the story, it's a bunny, it's a rabbit and a turtle that are in a race. But the turtle ends up winning even though he's ridiculously slower because he moves slow and calculated, but he never gives up. Where the bunny, was cocky and arrogant and kind of just chasing shiny objects all along the race because the bunny knew that they could just win, right? And, so it makes for a cute little bedtime story to read to your kids, but I don't think it really teaches us the accurate way to understand pace and speed and the value that can be in there. Maybe the moral of that story is enough if you're up against one easily distracted opponent like the bunny in that story. But as a one-person business, you're up against a whole sea of businesses where many of them are more experienced, they're much larger, and have a ton more money, and they're all competing for the same thing, attention and sales. So what if we could move faster than everyone else while still maintaining the quality of persistence that the tortoise represents in the children's story? The fact is you would be a savage. But here's the thing. Many solopreneurs get in their own way, causing a snail's pace level of progress at best, which usually results in burnout and or the need to go back and get a real job again. As I was kind of stewing on this whole thing, I decided, hey, let's play with some ChatGPT on it. So I just asked a very simple question. Why do solopreneurs procrastinate? And as I mentioned earlier, I gave you some of my ideas that I was thinking of as to why we aren't willing to try or move at a quicker pace with the things that we are working on. And here's what ChatGPT said. Here's the top 5 answers that I got. Number 1, why solopreneurs procrastinate is the overwhelm and the lack of prioritization. It says solopreneurs may procrastinate when they have too many tasks and struggle to prioritize effectively. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. 2, fear of failure or perfectionism, which I touched on earlier. Procrastination can stem from a fear of failure or a desire for perfection, causing solopreneurs to delay their action. Number 3, lack of accountability and structure. Without external accountability or structure, solopreneurs may struggle to stay on track and delay tasks. This is very true. You got to have some sort of structure or accountability system set up to help you, like it says, hold yourself accountable to the things that you want, because at the end of the day, if you don't get to where you want to in your solo business journey, you can't place the blame on anybody else. You can't control everything, of course, but you are in the driver's seat to such a large degree that to point the finger at anything else, any external circumstance that you couldn't control, is just childish. It's immature behavior. Accountability helps us reach the goal that we wanted in the first place. So we should leverage it. And the two other reasons that ChatGPT says that solopreneurs procrastinate is number 4, overestimation of time and underestimation of effort. Sometimes the procrastination can occur when we underestimate the time and effort required for tasks or projects. And I am so guilty of this. I'm like, I'll make this video. That'll be a simple project. And what was a simple project turns into a week's worth of stuff. And halfway through, I'm already tired of it because I didn't plan for it appropriately. And now other priorities in my list for that week are getting knocked off the totem pole. And it's really what it's doing is I'm sabotaging myself because I didn't think ahead of time. And I just didn't calculate or estimate appropriately how much effort or time certain tasks were going to take. So sometimes that can lead to procrastination once you've learned that the hard way a few times. And the last reason is lack of motivation or inspiration. That makes sense too. If you're not feeling super, if you don't have that spark, that little twinkle in your eye about what you're after and why you're doing what you're doing, like kind of looking at that dream board and thinking about that future version of you that you're so desperate to get towards, it can be easy to procrastinate because it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of purpose or reason behind what you're doing. So whether it be fear, lack of technical skill or accountability, or even just poor self-management abilities, there's a ton of stumbling blocks and possibly even a few excuses that continue to hold us up from reaching our real potential. But there's a lot at stake if we don't pick up the pace. We have to pick up the pace. Whether it be your health, your relationships, your profitable business, your next breath, nothing is guaranteed. Like that James Clear quote, nothing is promised to you. Regardless of your speed or output, this is a truth that we all have to reckon with. We have to face this head on, You can't just hide under the covers and pretend like it doesn't exist because, we're curled up in a corner. If nothing's guaranteed, then why the hell would you be satisfied with taking forever on the things that you value the most? Seriously, think about that for a second. And this is not me preaching at you. This is me creating information, creating these articles based off of information that I'm taking in and self-reflection that I'm having. So as I'm recording this, I'm asking myself the same thing. And I've really been stewing on it because I've been working on this for the past several days and just really chewing on this idea and looking for how I can improve myself and my businesses through this framework, this mental framework. But to be clear, I think it really needs to be said, though, this has nothing to do with patience. I'm not saying that we should throw patience out the window because really, you need to practice patience in all things. But this is not an excuse to move and take action like molasses. We need to pick up the pace and also be patient. I know it sounds counterintuitive, or that may be the excuse or argument that one may have when hearing this type of advice. But there is a way for those two things, for increased pace and tenacity and patience, to live and coexist together. Obviously, successful people have figured out how to do this. So how can we emulate what they're doing and do it in our own version so that we can live the life that we want? Because if you want to have more time living your dream outcome for your life, then we've got to pick up the pace. Back to that quote at the very beginning. Nothing is guaranteed, and you're probably not in business because you just love business and that's all you do. Now, there's plenty of people out there that's true. It's like, I don't need the reward. I don't need a dream outcome. I don't need to become profitable. I don't need to make a bunch of money. I don't need a bunch of notoriety or fame. I just love the pursuit of business. And hey, if that's you, fan-freaking-tastic. But you do have things that you desire, that you want to be able to build over time. You have where you're at today and where you want to be in the future, tomorrows. that hopefully you will survive to get to, right? And so like we have to realize, like, stop thinking that the dream is way out far in the future. Like, make your dream become reality now. And pace is the main metric. It's the main lever of whether you're going to get there in the next couple years or in the next 10 years or never. And as I said, I'm preaching this to myself too, because there's a ton of room for improvement for me. But I think there's 3 action items here that I want to share that can help you increase your speed and output in all things. And this is exactly what I'm going to be working on myself here too. And like I mentioned, number 1, get scrappy. Number 2, get better at doing less. And number 3, letting go of the little things. Because within all of these advice line items that we're about to expand into, the root of all of this is decision making, learning how to make quicker, sharper, better, more effective decisions, and not getting caught up in the micromanagement type of decisions that don't really move us forward. So these tips will help you make quicker decisions and improve your chances of success. Number 1, get scrappy, but don't become sloppy. As a one-person business, you've got to be scrappy, especially in the beginning. And you should take pride in this. You shouldn't feel like you have all the disadvantage because you're the small, you're the small company and you're up against the big guns and everything. Like, this is where you can be super scrappy and agile. All right. So what I mean by scrappy is resourceful, being flexible, and being clever. You're working outside of the boundaries. You can be a little bit cheeky. You can have some personality. You don't have to try to emulate big corporate or big companies. Like, leverage the scrappiness because it gives you the special identity to you as a person and as a brand that people are going to be able to grab onto. And we've talked about your brand story and personal branding in previous episodes, previous entries. And by all means, kill the perfectionist mentality. We're not out here to be perfect. And I'm not saying that you should be sloppy and be haphazard with how you run your business, but leverage loopholes and tinker with unconventional solutions. Aim for good enough, which ironically tends to turn out better than perfect anyway. And I know that's kind of weird the way I'm wording it, but good enough, like, aim for that as the thing that means, all right, it should go out to the world. We should ship it. That piece of content is good enough. That video is good enough. This podcast episode, I may be stuttering a little bit, or, the lighting may not be perfect or whatever it is, but like, it's good enough because the content is there and it's now out there to hopefully impact people positively. Because when you're aiming for perfect, typically you end up losing some of the essence that makes you special in that process. It becomes a little bit more plastic, especially if you're not used to, like in the content creation realm, if you're not used to recording and doing all that. If you try to do everything as perfect and professional as possible, you're probably going to screw up the point that you're trying to make in the guts of what information you're trying to deliver. So aim for good enough. Making something good enough is all you need as a one-person business, especially when starting out. Your website does not need to be primo. Your content doesn't need to be flawless. Your offers don't have to solve every single person's problem. Anymore these days, it seems like people that prioritize substance value over production value tend to win. Let me say that again. Because I'm kind of looking at 2 different things. It's like, where do people place their value? And the way I see it is, more so these days than ever, production value is not like the key indicator. It's more of the substance value. That's why we can watch these TikToks or these short form videos that are, the microphone is like a cheap little $10 thing off of Amazon, and the camera is like low resolution or whatever it may be. I mean, I guess everything's pretty high res at this point, but it's not so much about the production value, but the substance value. Is it a good message? Is it entertaining? Does it provide value in the sense of what is in that piece of content or what is in that product? I see a lot of like digital courses that are being put out by independent, business owners, one-person business owners. And the production value is not super crazy. Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn at all here, but like I have a pretty good content setup, truthfully, and I've worked to kind of set this up, and I have previous experience in other jobs that I've been able to carry over into this. And so I've been able to fortunately have I kind of know enough about lighting and enough about audio to be able to do decent production quality of the content that I create. And so then whenever I'm doing video walkthroughs or tutorials on products or whatever it may be, it's easier for me to kind of hit record, and it's going to be pretty decent quality. So that's fine. And yeah, like improve yourself where you can over time. But if it's going to sabotage the pace at which you can get things done, that is much more important. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. It's just become commoditized. Like I said, the high production value is just commoditized. It's not where the value really is. That's not what people are drawn to. They're really drawn to substance, that the things that are meaningful to them, with a substance where you're actually stating things in your content or building things within your products that solve their problems instantly or as fast as possible. Don't aim for great, aim for good enough. You'll still be able to create a meaningful impact for your people. And you can move at a much quicker pace, which is the whole point here. Ship your work before it's done, whether it be products or content. Use the free versions of software where you can. These are kind of examples of being scrappy. Hit up the bigger players in your niche before you feel comfortable, because newsflash, you're never actually going to feel comfortable. We always are going to have a bit of an imposter syndrome to a degree. Some people struggle with it more than others, but like start creating those connections, start shooting those DMs. This is how you can begin to pick up the pace by becoming more scrappy. And regardless of how well you implement this scrappiness into your business, if you don't pay attention to this next point, you're doomed either way. Point number 2, do less, better. I've done a whole entire entry and episode on this concept before, because once again, it's the thing that I need to continue to preach to myself. I'm starting to really be harsh with myself, not in a self-deprecating way, but like in an accountability type of way, like trying to be my own coach in some sense, on this whole idea of doing less, like get better at doing less. Point is, stop doing so much. For us entrepreneurial-minded individuals, and especially those that are like very creative brains, and a lot of entrepreneurs are pretty creative as well, this is an area that plagues all of us. For me, and this is not me trying to boast or complain, I'm just using myself as the example, as I always try to do. I'm currently writing weekly entries that are built as an email newsletter, a blog, and recording a podcast and a video for it. I'm developing digital products. I'm managing a small team of 3. I'm posting on all of the top social media platforms. I'm working as an email marketing freelancer for multiple clients. I'm playing in my church band several times a month. I've got dirt bikes out in the garage that I like to go ride. That's kind of my therapy, and that's how I can unplug. And so I want to make space for that in my life as well. I'm raising a family of 2 young boys. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and blah, 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 blah. I'm a husband that, and with any relationship, you have to be able to invest back into that. And that's through time and attention and having energy for that. And so all of these things, like my life is just crazy wild. It's crazy busy. It's the busiest season that I've ever had. Yet I'm having the most fun, and there's the most sense of purpose and fulfillment that I have in my life. And I'm probably hardly scratching the surface of what a lot of you guys are dealing with as far as all of the stuff that's on your plate, whether it's stuff that you love or a lot of BS that you're dealing with that you would love to get rid of. And then to continue on my story, it's like, that's what's going on right now. But then that's not me mentioning that I have goals of buying other small businesses and growing them to resell or to, use as kind of an equity play. Getting into short-term real estate rental game. We live in a perfect market for that here in Florida. And I've always wanted to have some wealth built out of real estate. I want to build that portfolio, and not only in short term, but also like long hold, long term rental type properties as well. I want to travel more. I'm starting to get to that age where I see like the mountains on the Discovery Channel or whatever show we're watching, and I'm like, man, I really want to see that like in person. And it goes back to like tomorrow's not guaranteed. And so I want to travel more. I want to start a radio show. I want to release new products and continue to put out consistent content. And I want to start bringing in a vlogging element to document this whole journey. That's just kind of everything that I've been doing, and show all the ugly behind the scenes, and take my phone and just kind of raw, uncut, and add to the YouTube channel in that fashion. But I have to practice doing less better. I got to get better at that, because it's like, what the hell am I thinking? I don't know, but all of these things are exciting to me. These are all things that I want in my life. And my business coach, Joel, is constantly having to rein me in on this. But here's the kicker. Here's the key thing for all of us. In order to support your future escapades, the future endeavors, the things you want to get into, you got to focus on a ridiculously limited amount of things right now, because you just can't nail it in all the areas all at once. Trust me, I've been trying, thinking that maybe I can be the exception to that rule, and that if I just spin a bunch of plates, maybe one of them will take off. But in fact, spinning a bunch of plates is keeping any of them from taking off, because I can't put the energy and effort into a few specific things to enable them to actually grow, right? So I've been trying to bring in others outside opinions and ideas to share with you guys in these entries as well. And so here's a tweet from Dakota Robertson. His handle is @wrongs2right, but the word right is like WRITE. So a nice little play on words, @wrongs2right. Dakota Robertson, he says here in this tweet, you don't need 4 cups of coffee. You need 8 hours of sleep. You don't need 8 hours of busy work. You need 4 hours of deep work. You don't need to focus on 10% on 10 things. You need to focus 100% on one thing. You don't need to be making content on every platform. You don't need a product or an offering to become profitable. You don't need to spend another 8 hours on research. You don't need to read every single email in your inbox immediately. You don't need to serve everyone. You don't need to be in most of the meetings that you find yourself stuck in. And you don't need to pay for the blue check mark on Twitter in order to grow on the platform. Here's 3 steps, and I should go ahead and say that was not all from Dakota Robertson. Those first 3 lines, that was from his tweet, and then all of those you don't needs, all those extra ones, that was me. I don't want to attribute the wrong things to wrong people or whatever. But anyway, just kind of moving on with the concept and the thought here is, here's 3 steps to do less better that I need to follow myself, honestly. Number 1, optimize what you have. Number 2, eliminate what's unnecessary. What plates can you get rid of? Which projects are just burning you down rather than building you up? Which ones are just not necessary right now? Maybe they're great for the future. Like for me, with getting the YouTube channel like really up and humming along and consistent uploads, but that would require, I need other things to kind of be up and running and fairly automated before I can give the energy to the channel that it would deserve so that it can do well and be something that I'm proud of. So eliminate what's unnecessary. And then the third step is add nothing until the first 2 steps have been repeated like 100 times. So it's the game of optimizing what you have and eliminating what's unnecessary. Then go back and optimize some more, eliminate what's unnecessary. Instead of rolling out a new product, I heard this from Alex Hormozy recently on one of his podcasts. He said, instead of rolling out another product, which is what most people do, you get one going and it seems to be selling and it's good and whatever, but maybe your customer service is a nightmare, or maybe the fulfillment is like there's some holes in the system. If you look at a product as kind of like a bucket, instead of creating another bucket to try to fill with water or with revenue and profits, try to patch the holes, like repair the leaks in the first bucket. And it's this idea of optimizing. Don't add, subtract. Another thing that Alex Hormozi says, which I don't know this to be true from my own experience, but I'm excited for it to become true from my experience. But he says, all you need for $1 million business is one product, one channel, and one avatar. That's all you need for a $1 million business. And so obviously you know what it means when I say one product. It's just one thing that you're selling, one offer. One channel could just be like maybe you promote it on Instagram. Maybe that's what you use. It's just that. And it's like an e-com store and it's as simple as that. And you sell cup holders or whatever it may be. And then one avatar is maybe they're, I don't know, like glow in the dark cup holders. And they're perfect for people that do content streaming or stream like gaming streaming. And so that would be your product. That would be like your customer avatar is like streamers, like maybe it's female streamers and that's it. And so one product, one channel, one avatar. And if you have a bucket that's not super leaky and you've optimized it, you for sure have $1 million business, even if your product only costs or you're selling it for a couple bucks. Like you can definitely do that is what he says. So I want to toss that to you and encourage you on that. And I will tell you whether that's right or wrong as I continue to carve my path as well. But hey, we're all in this together. And that's what I love about this whole thing called life and solarpreneurship. So to summarize that point, before you add to your business, subtract from your business. And so the third main action item or takeaway point for today's episode, I know this one is a little bit longer, is let go of small decisions. I've been known, I'll admit, I have been known to have control issues. Not in like a super aggressive way, but it's just that like almost in all things, I just have this tendency to steer the outcome in a direction that I feel is best. Not that I'm trying to like manipulate situations so that I get what I want, or at least that's not my intent. That's not where my heart is at. But like if there's a fork in the road and it's a decision that affects more than just me, and so it's not up to just me, like sometimes it's hard for me to completely let go and for us to go on a path that seems less than ideal from my perspective, you know? So I tell myself that this is some sort of quality of leadership, but the thing is, saying that is you may be starting to paint an excuse, and that's a slippery slope. But let me ask you a random question, and I'll tie it all back in. On average, how long does it take you to decide what to order off the menu when you go out to eat? Is it a big deal to you to get the perfect meal, or is a delicious option enough to give you satisfaction for that meal? The reason I asked this question is I just watched a video recently. Ryan Serhant, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. He was on $1 Million Listing way back in the day. He's a real estate agent. He's really built up a big business. He's a broker, does the whole thing, and sells huge, multi-million dollar properties out of New York. And I think he's pretty much worldwide or at least nationwide at this point. But he has a YouTube channel, and on one of his, I think he has multiple, but on one of his YouTube channels, I watched this video and he was talking about, he says he knows 94 billionaires, not millionaires, but billionaires. And he said that there's some characteristics, some quality traits that they all have in common. And so the video was it was really interesting. But one of the things that he mentioned is that like they are experts at not wasting time ever. And the reason is they know the value of time. They know that nothing's guaranteed. And why would you stand there and look at the menu like for any amount of time? Like ask the server what's best and go with that, especially if you're at a nice restaurant. You just can't go wrong. So what is it in your business that you're micromanaging that's not leading to massive positive impact? That stuff needs to be delegated. You need to rise above that. I always kind of picture the idea of like having a higher mental altitude. You need to operate at a higher altitude. You can't be getting caught up in the trees, all of these small little things that need to be happening on the day-to-day or week-to-week in your business. You need to be able to fly high enough so that you can see the whole forest and see what's coming up and be able to make larger decisions that steer your business in the right way. Granted, this is very tough if you work completely alone because you are pretty much doing everything. So then the game becomes, how can we not get caught up just mentally in the small stuff? Stop trying to be perfect. Let's just ship the work. Let's focus on pace, a high pace and a high output for our business is much better than making things perfect. Start to leverage technology, automations, AI, which is huge. Leverage some AI. These are things that you can do to help yourself as a solo business owner. So there are ways, no matter where you are on the scale of company size and if you have help or not, you've got to be able to let go of the small decisions and not let that hold you up. We got to increase our pace. Because trust me, I used to nitpick everything. And the only person that was negatively impacted by this pretty much immature, low-level IQ behavior was me. I was sabotaging myself and not realizing it. I was patting myself on the back for saying, well, I'm really detail focused. I'm really detail oriented. I just want things to be really good and perfect. Don't half-ass something and that's how I was justifying it. But the fact is, if it sabotages the pace at which you can work, then you need to realign your priorities. It's something that we have to continually work at, but let go of the small stuff. Preserve your energy and intensity for the things that actually move the needle in your business. In order to get to the level of success that you're chasing, that you're desperate for, you have to be quick to let go of small things and stay focused on big decisions. And here is a quote from somebody else named Brock Meche, Meche. Brock, I found him on Twitter. I thought this applied pretty well. And he says, how to make better decisions quicker. Play out the absolute best and worst case scenarios in your head. And if you can't live with both possible outcomes, simply don't do whatever it is that you were considering. Easy peasy. And so I really like that. Just on this idea of how to make effective decisions and how to make quick decisions. Maybe we need to let go of some of the things that we were constantly making decisions on before because it's tearing down our energy for the things that are more important for us. Show me someone who is decisive and keeps the ball rolling, and I'll show you a success in the making. It might as well be you. So stay scrappy, keep taking action on less things, and drop the little things that don't matter. You'll start to pick up the pace in a way that no one can match. And of course, I'm rooting for you. We're all on this journey together. And thank you for being here and listening. I hope you found some value out of this. And until next time, peace.